World War I, maybe the bloodiest, most gruesome war in history, perhaps was the most necessary for women. Every man slaughtered, every shot fired, every step taken served a purpose to win the war. However, there's more to it than what meets the eye, a purpose unknown to all, a social revolution born in the midst of the bloodshed. As bullets pierced the armor of many, women benefited from the departure of millions of men rushing to the battlegrounds. These men left behind thousands of jobs, and women were the only ones left to fill them. Women seized the opportunity and flooded the workplace, initiating yet another battle that would go on for decades. Women had no place and no respect in the workplace before World War I. They were judged by their beauty, not their ability. Men dominated all fields of work, while females stayed at home, taking care of children and doing housework such as cooking, cleaning, and sewing. Because of the expansion of women's education, about 3 million women were able to get jobs. Some of these jobs were nurses, military auxiliaries, ambulance drivers, farm workers, and factory laborers. Even in these fields, women were paid considerably less than men. Also, women who mostly attended to family and house matters worked side by side with their spouses. However, they were never given any credibility or power as their spouses carried, despite being skilled in gardening, medicine, farming, blacksmithery, tailoring, painting, and other man work. Women just accepted their place in the political world and society.
Women, on average, really benefited in a lot of ways from the First World War. This is partly because there had been a strong women's movement prior to the war, and they took advantage of the war years. During the war, most suffragists who had been peace activists prior to the war, the vast majority ended up siding with the war.
Certainly this.
Because millions of men were needed on the battlegrounds. Employers desperately hired females to replace them. Millions of women joined the workforce, the Army and the Marines. Surprisingly, women were efficient in their work and soon realized it. They demanded equal wages and went on strikes. Their goals may not have been fully met, but they still received an increase in pay. Now, women were being paid half as much as men, despite all the risks their lives were exposed to. Furthermore, most women were not allowed to vote. Even though women worked day and night without a break for days, they still did not gather enough respect to make major changes.
The most dangerous work of all was filling the shelves with explosive, or making the explosive itself.
The clothing we wore was fireproof, the shoes was fireproof, and every time we went out to a meal, we had to take all our fireproof clothing off and put on our outdoor clothing, which took time from our dinner hour. And again, we were searched when we returned in case of cigarettes, matches, or pins, etc.
In the United States alone, about 20% of the working force in all manufacturing industries was made up of women. 1914, Great Britain, 3.3 million women are employed. This number rose to more than 4.9 million in 1918. Women are coming closer to finally being treated as equals compared to men, or so we thought. If we take a closer look, we'll notice women are kept in poor work conditions. As they worked, they inhaled dangerous concentrations of harmful substances and were left in unsanitary workplaces. They were exposed to TNT, which left their skin yellow. Not only did TNT cause many health problems, it also exploded randomly, killing many workers and blowing up houses all around the initial explosion. 25,000 women who joined the men on the battlegrounds risked death by diseases and warfare of all kinds. Many of these females were murdered, injured, or permanently disabled. Women finally received an ounce of respect during the war, yet they still were kicked and beat every second of their lives. This did not stop some women to do great things with their lives. Mary Borden, who set up a mobilized hospital to nurse wounded soldiers, paying all expenses with her own money, helped to gather respect and dignity for women. Mary Borden was not the only woman to do amazing things during World War I. Disregarding how women were considered in her society, Flora Sanders raised in ranks and proved that females can be as great as men. She started her career in the Army as a nurse, but through a series of courageous and brave actions, she found herself promoted as sergeant and then captain. Women accomplished much during the war. Not only did they maintain housework and family matters, they went out of the house and mastered many new skills such as clergy, industry, and barbering. Along with those skills, females made themselves prominent in all types of work, from conducting streetcars to digging trenches out on the battlegrounds. Women took on many new responsibilities during World War I. Women are needed to take on these responsibilities, which explains why many laws keeping women out of large-scale productions were removed.
Rather than Mrs. Pankhurst and her suffragettes, gave women the right to vote. The Representation of the People Act of 1918 went even further. Women could now stand for election to Parliament.
All the respect women gained during the war slowly slipped away from their clutches once the war was over. As men came back from the battlegrounds, they came back looking for their jobs, the same jobs that women took away from them. The 1919 Restoration and Pre-War Practices Act forced many women out of their jobs and back into their 24/7 household duties. Those who refused were not dealt with kindly. Those women who lost their jobs now took care of their injured spouses or grieved about their losses. Once again, females were dominated by men in all fields of work and mostly served as domestic servants. However, not all acts made after the war removed women from assembly lines and industries. The Sex Disqualification Act of 1919 made it illegal to exclude hiring women because of their gender, and the Representation of the People Act of 1918 gave suffrage to 8.5 million females in Britain. The suffragette movement brought home a partial victory for females, allowing women over 30 to vote. Although the economy worsened and things seemed to go back to normal, women's social revolution continued to live on.
Before the war, women were treated as domestic servants with little or no influence on the political world. However, once the war came around and as millions of men left for the trenches, women found that doors previously closed were suddenly opening up with opportunities. Women saw themselves in all fields of work, and because they worked so productively, more doors opened up for them. Females received increased pay and suffrage after so much hard work and struggle. Despite all of this, women still had hard times during the war, facing death by numerous factors, harsh work conditions, and no respect.
Wages were good, and some of the public resented this. They thought the girls in munitions were getting above themselves, forgetting their place.
We as munition workers were heartily disliked by the general public. You would go down the street and people would look at you and say, one of those munition workers. Anything derogatory that could be said about you was said about you. It was very uncomfortable sometimes. And I think, as a general rule, the idea was that you made such enormous amounts of money and other people didn't.
After the war, things just got worse. Many women were kicked out of their jobs, replaced by the men who left to fight in the war. This did not stop the social revolution. Women went on and fought for the right to vote, the right to be educated, social equality, and equal pay. The revolution born from all the bloodshed resulted in freedom and liberty for all women.